Alright guys, this is Mr. V. We're back in my workshop. We're doing another video. This one is going back to swallowing. I already did this one. I don't know how I lost. I'm having all kinds of technical issues, but we're going to redo this one. So if you see me wearing this shirt in this one, and then the next like 3 videos happen, and I'm wearing this shirt again after 3 more videos, it's the same day. Alright, because this is a go back video. Normally, I don't wear my clothes day after day after day after day, maybe 2 days, depends on if we're on a break. But this is on swallowing. First of all, I need you to know that once you're done in the mouth, you've chewed your food, the salivary glands have done their secreting, then you're going to go through what's called the swallowing reflex. Now, a reflex is something that is, once it's initiated, you can't stop it. You just can't stop it. In other words, I want you to see if you can half swallow and then decide, I'm not going to swallow, and then just not swallow. No, once you start the swallowing reflex, there's no way to not do it because it's a huge amount of key information that's going to happen during swallowing. One of them is this flap of tissue in the back of your throat, and some of you can probably see it. Some of you might be able to actually open your mouth in the mirror, wide, push your back of your tongue down, and you might be able to see the top of it. It's called the epiglottis. The epiglottis is a flap of tissue that's held open. It's basically cartilage with epithelial tissue surrounding it, but it's held open at all times until you swallow. Because you have 2 tubes that go down your throat, 2 major tubes, you have a whole bunch of them. One is this one, it's the trachea. It's going to take air down to my lungs. Now, when I swallow my food tonight, and my wife is making one of my favorites, I wish I could name it for you, a chicken parmesan with some kind of a sauce that, oh, it's so good. Oh God, oh, cephalic phase of digestion just happened. My mouth just started watering. She's cooking it tonight. Once I chew that up and I swallow it, I don't want it going to my lungs, right? I want it going to my stomach. So that flap of tissue called the epiglottis, it's going to cover up your trachea during the whole swallowing reflex. Now, some of you have done things before where you tried to swallow, but one of your friends at the lunch table made you laugh, and you made your epiglottis kind of go whoop, 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 and then you started getting, I don't know, milk down to your lungs. You ever done that? You know, you feel like you're dying for about 10 seconds. You try to keep your composure, but your face is turned red and you're coughing and all these people are looking at you going, oh, okay. That's because that epiglottis, you try to change the impulse and it kind of went like this, and then fluid started going down to your lungs, and you have a huge response not to let that happen. Like, it's actually called the drowning reflex, where your body does all these things to try not to let your lungs get suffocated, if you will. But we're really in the digestive system, and so we're going to swallowing. You chew it up, you chew 30 times, you move all that. Now it's called the bolus. The bolus is not food anymore. Now it's a bolus because you've mixed salivary glands, salivary secretions with it. You move it to the back of your throat to a place called the pharynx. The pharynx, P-H-A-R-Y-N-X. Please say pharynx. It's one of my pet peeves. Don't say the pharynx. It's not called the pharynx, just like your voice box is not called the larynx. It's called the larynx and the pharynx. The back of your throat is called the pharynx. All right, so you're going to move it to your back of your throat. Now, something important is going to start right there. And if I had my marker, I would write it down. There it is. It's called peristalsis. Peristalsis. Let me catch up. This is going to be video 3. One of the main things is it's a reflex, but also one of the main things is peristalsis starts. This is going to be a test question. Nobody misses it. Starts in the pharynx. The pharynx, not the esophagus. Now, why do people pick the esophagus? You lose control over what happens from right here down, okay? Not on your esophagus down. So as soon as you swallow, your body kind of says, okay, I'll take it from here, and it starts a peristaltic wave. Now, peristalsis, I've actually gotten this little, this is an apple. This is an apple that I stuffed in, what I'm going to say is your pharynx, or call it your whole alimentary canal. But let's say that this is your alimentary canal, starting with your pharynx. Your tongue moves the bolus back here. You start the swallowing reflex. You're done at that point. Now peristaltic waves are going to move the apple through, or the bolus in this case, through the alimentary canal. How do you do that? Well, remember, it's got muscle, and it's going to squeeze above it, and it's going to shove it down. It's going to push it down, all right? And it's going to shove all these things down through the alimentary canal all the way to the toilet, really. Okay, we're talking all the way to the rectum because you actually have voluntary movements from the rectum on. We'll get there at some point, but this is what we're looking at. So that is peristalsis, the movement of the bolus through the alimentary canal. Now, additionally on the swallowing, once your pharynx takes over, peristalsis starts there. That epiglottis opens up. Oh, I should say it closes over the trachea, allowing the food to be forced down in the tube behind this tube. Now, if you grab your throat right here, you're actually grabbing your trachea. It's got cartilage to hold it open. Food shouldn't go down it. But right behind it is a flattened tube, like a giant McDonald's straw with muscle. And it's called your esophagus. And that food is supposed to take 5 seconds to go down the esophagus. The esophagus has walls of muscle. It's going to squeeze it down. The esophagus, approximately 5 seconds for it to move down there. Now, there's an unfortunate story about a guy, and I want you to look this guy up, but this guy, I guess it's fortunate in a way, it's unfortunate in another way, but he tried to commit suicide by drinking drain killer. All right, he drank a lot one night, he got really depressed while he was inebriated, and so he grabbed some drain cleaner, and he chugged it down, basically trying to commit suicide. Well, the drain cleaner is a very strong base. It's not an acid, it's a very strong base. And the bases dissolve as well as acids do, and it dissolved his entire pharynx, and also the top of his stomach. So he got rushed to the hospital. The surgeons thought, oh my gosh, we can possibly save this guy. And they did. They did. They saved this guy, but they had to build a new esophagus because he dissolved his away. And they built it out of a synthetic material that they attached to his pharynx. And the cool thing about this is it's cool, maybe it's wrong for me to say this, but the thing that's really cool about this guy is when he swallowed, he didn't have peristaltic waves to move his food down the stomach. So a bolus would appear right here because they moved it in front of his trachea, and then they built him an esophagus outside of his sternum and under his skin. So when he swallowed, he had to physically move the food. Check him out on YouTube. You can watch this guy do this with his fingers down to what remains of his stomach. How cool would it be to sit with this guy at lunch and watch him eat? How cool would that be? He would swallow, and then he'd go, and he'd move it down. So it's not 5 seconds for him, it's more like 20 seconds. Check him out, crazy story, but that esophagus is, I don't know, call it the food tube if you want, the food tube, about 5 seconds. Now, after you swallow, it moves through the esophagus, then you're gonna hit the first of 6 sphincters you have to know for this. Sphincters, S-P-H-I-N-C-T-E-R, a sphincter. It's a band of muscle that closes like this. There's 6 of them in the system that I want you to know. There's probably more. We're going to have to know 6 of them. As soon as the food gets to the bottom of your esophagus, it's going to hit what we call the lower esophageal sphincter. It's also known as the cardiac sphincter. I just misspelled it. Cardiac sphincter, lower esophageal sphincter, it's the same sphincter. It's called the cardiac sphincter because it's close to the heart. And because one of the things that it does is on the bottom of your esophagus, it lets food go this way, but when food tries to go this way, it squeezes down and it says, you're not moving. Now this is pretty difficult because sometimes we have another reflex. It's not just the swallowing reflex, it's called a vomit reflex. And you know vomiting is a reflex because you can't choose not to do it. In other words, if you're in a crowded place and you have to throw up, it's not like you can say, hey, this is not the right time or place to do this, so I'm just going to wait a couple of hours. No, since it's a reflex, it will happen when it decides to happen. Now, the problem is that lower esophageal sphincter or the cardiac sphincter, it's going to squeeze tight. And your stomach's going to say, with all 3 layers, your stomach has 3 layers of muscle, It's going to contract forcefully, but the sphincter is going to go, and then the stomach's going to say, oh yeah, you are, and it's going to go, whoa, and the sphincter is going to say, I'm not moving. Then after about 3, the sphincter goes, I'm getting tired now. And then eventually the vomit reflex happens and you're going to have to vomit. That's normally why when somebody gets sick or they vomit, this is really a gross chapter, so I'm sorry about all this vomit talk, and then later it's going to be diarrhea, it's going to be constipation. But that's why normally if somebody has to throw up, they have like 2 or 3 dry heaves with a battle between the cardiac sphincter and the strength of the stomach. The stomach is stronger and it will win that battle eventually, but you're going to try to throw up 2 or 3 times, and then finally the sphincter is going to give way. Then the food is going to drop down into the stomach, and that should be video 4 if I counted this correctly. Now we're at video 4, I believe, but so far you should know about the swallowing reflex. You will see several questions from what we talked about this video on the test, so please kick butt on it. You guys can do this. Pay attention, take notes, check out your book chapter on this area on swallowing, but this is the boiled down version of what you're going to have to know on the test. All right, so this is Mr. V checking out with video number 3 on swallowing. You guys have a wonderful day.